Previously on Eleceed. Jiwoo narrowly saved Subin from Duke's devastating attack. Upset by his interference, Duke challenges Jiwoo to a sparring match. The two young Awakeners have their battle, the match showing them to be very close in power and skill. The match was tough for our protagonist, but by utilizing the skills that he had learned from Kayden and Chairman Han, Jiwoo managed to defeat Duke. Although it had seemed as if Jiwoo and his friends had seen the last of the World Academy students, the notorious Kayden Luderane had made his appearance on the campus grounds. Bored and upset by his classmates' loss to the Korean school, Kayden took it upon himself to redeem his school's dignity and came across Eleceed and Duri. He challenged them to a fight with his companion and mythical beast, Lancelot. But when they refused his request, Lancelot went after Kayden and Kartine, forcing Duri to fight back. Surprised by the dog's bravery and loyalty, Kayden effortlessly took out Lancelot. Jiwoo eventually arrives to the scene, and with his pride at stake, Kayden challenges Kayden and Jiwoo to a duel. They immediately have their duel, with the teachers as spectators. Not willing to make the same mistake again, Kayden shows Jiwoo Lancelot's true form. But even Lancelot's mythical form is not enough for Kayden's mighty Meow Meow punch, and like before, Lancelot is defeated. With yet another defeat, the World Academy instructors try their best to recruit Jiwoo and his friends for their school, but every one of them rejects the World Academy's offer. Infuriated, the instructors decide to go with Plan B and decide to get rid of all of the young Awakeners, starting with Jiwoo. The instructor silently stalks Jiwoo, ready to pounce, when suddenly he is stopped by none other than Amang. In the quiet of a twilight-hued alley, Amang confronts a mysterious man, his steely eyes demanding an explanation for his suspicious presence. The man hesitates for a split second before revealing his interest in Jiwoo, hinting at his attempt to kill Jiwoo. A flash of rage darkens Amang's eyes, and without a word, he pounces, signaling the start of a fierce battle. As steel meets steel, Amang notes the man's dulled reflexes, evidence of years spent away from the deadly dance of assassination, and instead submerged in academic pursuits. Throughout their skirmish, the man attempts to rile up Amang, questioning his undying loyalty to Jiwoo. But with a swift, fatal stroke, Amang silences him forever, leaving behind a chilling declaration of a debt he owed to Jiwoo. On a distant beach, bathed in moonlight, Jiwoo collapses, exhausted from his nightly workout. As Jiwoo lies on his back trying to catch his breath, a shadowy figure approaches him. As the figure steps into the light, Jiwoo's eyes widen in recognition. Addressing Amang as Hyung as he asks him what he is doing there. Amang, keeping his face impassive, chides Jiwoo for his recklessness, reminding him of the magnitude of bearing the title of Kayden's apprentice. With forces like the World Awakened Academy now taking interest, it was time that Jiwoo truly grasped the implications of his new identity. Visibly overwhelmed, Jiwoo's voice trembles as he asks for guidance. Amang, ever the protector, steals him with a passionate call to resilience. Moved, Jiwoo rises, with a fire lit within him, vowing to meet every challenge head-on. Before vanishing into the shadows, Amang tells Jiwoo that he was done repaying his debt and vanishes, but Jiwoo had no idea what Amang was talking about. Jiwoo returns to his dorm and tells Kayden and Kartine about his encounter with Amang. Kayden asks Jiwoo what Amang said, and Jiwoo tells him that Amang advised him to get stronger and told him that he was done repaying his debt. Kartine agrees with Amang's advice to Jiwoo and tells him that he needs to be wary of the World Academy. He reminds Jiwoo that the World Academy is constantly seeking kids with potential so that they can control them however they want. But if they fail to control them, the World Academy take out the young rookies in order to weaken the rookies' country and avoid future threats to them. Kayden emphasizes that unaffiliated kids like Jiwoo and some of his other classmates need to be extra careful. This revelation spurs Jiwoo into introspection. He ruminates on the ever-shifting power dynamics in their world, acknowledging the need to gather strength and stand tall like his mentors, Kayden and Kayden. Agreeing with Jiwoo's epiphany, Kayden advises that mastering force control will be the key to Jiwoo's indomitable rise. Sunlight streams through the tall glass windows of the facility, setting a shimmering ambience. Within its walls, a remarkable scene unfolds. Gangwoo Choi, Jae Lee, Taeyoung Ki, and Jungsu Lee stepped in and immediately were met with a buzz of admiration from their fellow students. Whispers of their recent exchange with the World Awakened students rippled through the crowd, leaving them slightly taken aback by the unexpected recognition. As conversations around them grew, Jiwoo, with his hair slightly ruffled from training, strides over, greeting the group with a nod, and asks them if they are ready to get back to their training regimen. As he is talking to his classmates, Gangsuk approaches Jiwoo and challenges him to a sparring match for when he is fully recovered. But before Jiwoo can respond, Jisuk, ever the protective friend, intercedes. He tells Gangsuk that before he can even think about challenging Jiwoo, he needs to spar and defeat all of Jiwoo's previous rivals. Overlooking this lively exchange from a balcony above, Jiyoung reminisces. The recent confrontation seems to have forged stronger bonds among the students, something she'd hoped for. A flashback takes her to a conversation that she had with the chairman. Chairman Han emphasized the urgency for unity among Korea's awakened ones, referencing invisible puppet strings from various organizations looking to control their nation. Samvik's eyes revealed a hint of sadness, reflecting his concerns over the weight Jiyoung bore as Korea's beacon of hope. Jiyoung, however, remained resolute, having been prepared for this very responsibility since her ascent to the top. Exiting the training hall, Jiyoung and In-hyuk make their way back to the Shinhwa facility. They don't make it far before getting stopped by Jiwoo, who dashes toward Jiyoung, happy to see her. He tries to strike up a conversation, but is told that Jiyoung is too busy to chat. Seeing Jiwoo's disappointed face, Jiyoung decides to set aside some time to talk with Jiwoo. The two engage in a heart-to-heart, where Jiwoo, ever the modest warrior, attributes his recent successes to mere luck. Jiyoung, however, believes otherwise and urges him to embrace his undeniable skill. Jiyoung's evident pride in Jiwoo's choice to stay true to his friends, rather than pursuing tempting offers from the World Awakened Academy, deepens their bond. Evening descends, and within a quieter corner of the facility, Kayden and Kayden engage in a thought-provoking discourse about Jiyoung's position in the world of awakened ones. Jiwoo joins in, his admiration for Jiyoung palpable, especially given how she has managed the Shinhwa group with poise, despite them being peers in age. But as the conversation delves deeper into the perils that come with being a top ranker, especially from a perceived weaker nation, their contemplation is cut short by a loud blast. Elsewhere, Jiyoung, with her clothes ruffled but her stance firm, confronts an audacious challenger who dares question her prowess. The tension in the air is palpable as she stands, ready to defend her title, honor, and country. Jiwoo's movements seamlessly flow, each step a dance of power and precision. Nearby, Chairman Han stands, a mentor observing his pupil, eyes widening at the realization of how quickly Jiwoo has harnessed the essence of the power movement method. The serenity in Jiwoo's eyes, a stark contrast to the sheer power of his moves, captures Sungik's attention. When Jiwoo finally comes to a halt, he looks up, his gaze seeking validation. Chairman Han, clearing his throat, offers Jiwoo a nod. He admits that Jiwoo's progress is unparalleled, as the edges of his mouth curl into a smile. Jiwoo's face lights up. Excitedly, he describes how integrating the power movement method has altered his combat approach. The once tiring maneuvers now come naturally, all thanks to the chairman's teachings. His enthusiasm grows as he mentions Mr. Kayden's advice, describing it as the yin to Sangik's yang. Jiwoo's adaptability and quick understanding of blending his attacks with movement left Chairman Han deeply impressed. After finishing his training with the chairman, Chairman Han is approached by Kayden and Karteen. Kayden straightforwardly asks about Sangik's intentions behind teaching Jiwoo part of his force control, a technique usually reserved for dedicated disciples. Sangik's eyes sparkle as he just signs and smiles. He tells Kayden that he doesn't know what came over him. The trio smile together as they smirk at the charismatic charm that Jiwoo has. With the event concerning the World Academy officially behind them, In-hyuk drives the students back to their homes. As he is driving, In-hyuk suddenly receives a call from the Shinhwa facility telling him to hurry back. Back at the facility, Ji-young sits nervously across from Veramonte Patrick, one of the top 10 rankers of the awakened world. Veramonte tells Ji-young not to be so nervous and tells her that he and his grandson, Jurian, were simply there to meet her. Initially, after hearing about her victory against a top 100 awakened, he wanted to have Ji-young be a sparring partner for Jurian, but now he's had a change of mind. He advises Ji-young that her earlier challenge against the top 100 ranker was an attempt from outside forces to keep her country in check. Being that she is the top ranker of Korea and that she defeated the top ranker, this won't be the last time that her and her country are tested. So to help her out, he comes up with a proposal. He suggests that she joins their family and marries his grandson. As he elaborates on the potential of such an alliance, Ji-young, taken aback, struggles to frame a response. Before she can articulate her thoughts, the room doors fling open. Jisuk and In-hyuk enter the room, with their faces filled with concern. They wonder why a top ranker like Veramonte would take the time out of his day to visit Ji-young, their instincts sensing an underlying motive. Their hunch proves to be correct when Veramonte reveals that Ji-young and Jurian would be getting married. Everyone is left silent after hearing the big news. But Jisuk tells Jurian that that's impossible since Ji-young is already going out with Jiwoo, shocking everyone again. Jurian is not surprised though. He says that understandingly, a woman as charming as Ji-young would have someone she is dating. However, that doesn't matter since he does not believe that Jiwoo is a worthy fit for Ji-young. A random voice speaks out from behind everyone and asks Jurian, who says that Jiwoo is unfit to be Ji-young's partner. Taken aback by Kayden's sudden appearance, Veramonte's composure changes as he immediately rises from his seat. Kayden steps to Jiwoo's side as he asks Veramonte his question again, and questions him on why Jurian is qualified to be by Ji-young's side, but not Jiwoo. Veramonte asks Kayden if Jiwoo is truly his apprentice. He had heard rumors before about Kayden taking on an apprentice, but he didn't believe them. Veramonte immediately orders Jurian to apologize to Jiwoo for his earlier statement, stating that no one can argue against the qualifications of Kayden's apprentice, given Kayden's status. Although reluctant, Jurian bows his head and apologizes to Jiwoo. Ever the humble individual, Jiwoo tells Jurian to raise his head and tells him that he really isn't that qualified. Confused by Jiwoo's mannerisms, Veramonte asks Jiwoo why he thinks that he's not fit and asks him if he knows about how significant it is to be Kayden's apprentice. Jiwoo's puzzled look answers Veramonte's questions. Kayden tells Veramonte not to pester Jiwoo too much and informs him that Jiwoo had recently become his apprentice, and that not too long ago, he had discovered that he was an awakened. With his eyes glowing with determination, Jurian interrupts the top ranker's conversation and asks if he could have a chance to spar against Jiwoo. Everyone is shocked by the sudden challenge and are against it. Jurian was an Awakener who had been trained by a top ranker since he was young, and someone who was strong enough to make it in the Awakened world's top 100. Jiwoo stood absolutely no chance against him. Veramonte immediately checks his grandson and tells him that he should be ashamed for challenging Jiwoo. But Jiwoo steps up and accepts Jurian's challenge. As Kayden's apprentice, Jiwoo feels as if it is his duty to accept and take on any challenge that comes his way, just like his teacher. Veramonte laughs at Jiwoo's response and tells him that he's beginning to look more like Kayden in many ways. As a sign of respect, Veramonte asks Jiwoo for his name and tells him that in a month, he and Jurian will have their match. Before leaving, Jurian asks Jiyoung to give him a chance and to give him her answer after the match. After Veramonte and Jurian leave, Jisoo turns to his sister and asks her what her conversation with Veramonte was all about. She returns the question and asks Jisoo why he would burden Jiwoo and put him in such a tough spot. Jiwoo interrupts the siblings' conversation and tells him that it's not a burden at all. He tells her that ever since he entered the Awakened world, Jiyoung and Shinhwa have always been by his side and supported him, so if he could return the favor, he was glad to do it. Jiwoo also added that the match was not Jiyoung's fault, and that Jurian only challenged him to a match because he is Kayden's student. After Jisoo left the room, Jiwoo asked Jiyoung if she was going to give Jurian a chance. Jiyoung asks Jiwoo if it bothers him, to which Jiwoo answers yes. With a smile, Jiyoung tells Jiwoo that she won't give Jurian a chance, especially since the two of them are allegedly going out. Overjoyed by Jiyoung's response, Jiwoo drops his head in embarrassment and blushes. Veramonte approaches Jurian and tells him that he knows that he will probably want to have a match with Kayden after beating his apprentice. Jurian begins to apologize, but Veramonte says he isn't against that. In fact, he states that the mindset that he won't lose no matter who he faces is exactly the kind of mindset that Jurian needs in order to be his successor. But he also tells Jurian that this time, he took it too far. Veramonte tells Jurian that Kayden is out of his league and informs him that Kayden once challenged all the world's top 10 fighters, but none of them accepted the challenge. Jurian asks if it was because none of them thought such a challenge was worth their time. Veramonte answers that the top 10 specifically avoid fighting each other, as they are each so powerful that those involved could be significantly injured. Jurian wonders if Kayden's power is comparable to the top 10, and while Veramonte doesn't know for certain, he says going up against Kayden wouldn't be easy, even for the top 10, as he is the only one to have been recognized by them. Meanwhile, Kayden tells Jiwoo that Jurian is in the world's top 100 fighters, as he is Veramonte's grandson and has studied under him. Jiwoo asks if he is really that strong, and Kayden tells him that even the Klein brothers aren't in the top 100, and the same is true for Amang. Concerned, Kayden asks if he now understands who he agreed to fight with. Kayden calls Jiwoo a fool, but Jiwoo responds that he felt like he couldn't refuse the challenge since doing such would bring shame to Kayden's name. Kayden encourages Jiwoo and tells him that this is an opportunity for him to gain some valuable experience, as getting challenged is inevitable. Until he gains global recognition, things will continue to get harder, as he is Kayden's apprentice. Kayden says it's all because of Kayden picking fights all over the world. Ignoring him, Kayden asks Jiwoo how he plans to prepare for the match. Jiwoo says that although he knows that he has no chance, he wants to use the match as a stepping stone to get stronger. Kayden agrees, assuring him that this mindset will make him strong in the end. Suddenly, the doorbell rings and Jiwoo leaves to check it out. Kayden asks Kayden why he stepped in like that earlier. He knows that Kayden is always eager to fight against strong people, but doing such against one of the top 10 rankers in his condition was risky. Kayden replies that he did it because he couldn't stand to watch Veramonti and his grandson look down upon Jiwoo. Kayden asks if he went in without thinking because of his anger, and Kayden answers that looking down on Jiwoo is like looking down on him. Kayden and Kayden go upstairs and see Jiwoo sitting with his friends. Subin is worried for Jiwoo, but Jiwoo is cheerful and says that he will try his best. His friends tell him to really beat his opponent up, even if he loses. The doorbell rings again, and Jiwoo goes to check on what's happening while Subin says it must be the food she ordered. Jisik asks why they have 2 extra bowls of jjajangmyeon, a popular Korean noodle dish made with black bean paste, pork, or any kind of meat and vegetables. Subin replies to Jisuk and tells him that they're all for Wooin. Wooin suddenly recalls a very pleasant memory of eating very tasty jjajangmyeon with Dr. Daleen, and he quietly eats his portion while the rest fight over the food. The next day, Jiyoung and Jurian are seen having a meeting. Jurian and Jiyoung sip some tea as they sit across from each other. A few days before, Veramonti and Jurian were driving to meet with Jiyoung. Veramonti informs Jurian about Jiyoung and tells him that she is the #1 ranker in Korea and younger than him. He adds that she's also the head of a large organization. Veramonti reminds Jurian to be respectful when meeting her. Initially, Jurian was not interested in meeting Jiyoung and thought less of her, but that immediately changed upon seeing Jiyoung, and Jurian quickly falls for her. Back to the present, Jiyoung asks Jurian the reason for his visit. He says he will leave and return later in time for the match, but he just wanted to see her, hoping to get an answer to his request. Jiyoung apologizes, saying she can't give him a chance. Jurian is shocked at her turning him down, and when he asks her the reason, Jiyoung simply says she has a promise to keep. Jurian can't believe it. He wonders if it's about Jiwoo. He can't understand why she would refuse his offer only for a promise. While he tries to understand, he says that he can't stop his heart from falling for her and gets up, saying he will see her again soon. As he leaves, he thinks about how he only grows more attracted to her because of her confidence and beauty. Later that night, Kayden tells Jiwoo that it's impossible to grow the needed amount of power in just 1 month. He asks him what his next best option is, and Jiwoo answers that he needs to use his power to the fullest in the most efficient way and gain full control over it. Kayden, however, tells the two to take it easy, stating 1 month of training won't make any difference. Jiwoo retorts his statement and tells Kayden that 1 month will turn into 1 year, and then 1 year will eventually turn into 2. As Kayden and Kayden watch Jiwoo train, Kayden says that Jiwoo resembles Kayden more and more every day, causing Kayden to smirk. Jiwoo falls to the ground exhausted. Kayden tells him to keep practicing his force control while he rests. He sits up and performs the technique, tired but still determined. Kayden then tells Jiwoo that the Patricks are skilled in hand-to-hand combat, but their real strength comes from their ability to manipulate their own shadows to attack and defend. At first, Jiwoo was confused. Kayden moves his shadow a bit as a demonstration, then engulfs Jiwoo in it completely. Once he's released from the manipulation, Jiwoo says that being inside the shadow makes force control more difficult. Kayden tells him that his real opponents will use techniques like that, but even stronger. Kayden is shocked seeing Kayden manipulate his shadow, just like the Patricks, and sits in his box, wondering if kittens have powers beyond their imagination. Kayden and Jiwoo train together over the course of the next month to prepare for the fight. Eventually, a month passes. At the Shinhwa facility, In-hyuk and Jiyoung meet with Jurian and Veramonti. In-hyuk congratulates Jurian for defeating the 95th ranker. Veramonti comments that they wanted to go ahead and challenge someone higher up the ladder, but they postponed everything just for the match. Not far behind, Jiwoo, covering his face, and Kayden in his human form, arrive together at the scene. Jiwoo bows and greets everyone. Days before the match, Jiyoung had tried to meet Jiwoo, but Karteen told her that Jiwoo and Kayden had locked themselves in the basement to train and left him in charge of feeding the cats. Jiwoo takes off his hood as Kayden tells them to get on with the fight, and Veramonte agrees. Jiwoo and Jurian stand across from each other ready to fight. Suddenly, Kayden scolds Jurian and tells him that he should be ashamed of himself for being a world ranker and picking a fight with a newly awakened kid, surprising everyone and leaving Jurian speechless. Veramonte cuts in and says they have already agreed to the match and that it's too late to back out. But Kayden says that he's not trying to stop the fight and that he is just stating the truth. He insists that he's right and tells Veramonte that his grandson needs to work on his integrity as an awakened. Jurian admits that his desire to fight with Kayden's apprentice got him swept up in the heat of the moment. He says he's grateful to Jiwoo for accepting his offer and agrees to give him a handicap in order to bridge the gap between them. Jurian suggests that if Jiwoo can land an attack on any part of his body, he will accept it as his loss. He explains to Jiwoo that he didn't add the handicap to belittle him, and Inhyef agrees that landing a successful attack on a world's ranker will be a huge challenge for Jiwoo, as it's rumored that Jurian won an overwhelming victory against the 97th ranker. Jiwoo says that he knows that Jurian is not trying to belittle him. Jiwoo points out that with or without the handicap, his chances against Jurian are still scarce, so he agrees to the new terms. While this discussion is happening, Jurian notices Jiyoung staring at Jiwoo, unable to take her eyes off him, and wonders if she's that worried for Jiwoo. Veramonte says that now that they have agreed to better terms, they should begin the match. After a month of training, Jiwoo prepares himself to take on Jurian.
Eleceed.
Eleceed. We will now begin.
Just as Kayden taught me, just as I've been training all along, just do my best.
Let's use a different tactic this time.
Why?
The gap between you and him is such that you won't get much out of it, and he won't be considerate enough to let you learn from it either.
Look at that boy. He's nervous, but not afraid. And what's more, he's got that audacious stare.
He's Kayden's apprentice, so he'll most likely use electricity. I should make this quick for both of our sakes.
Is it me? Jiwoo's posture is different from his usual. It's as if he's getting ready to unleash his power outward!
Now!
What?
At speed! So then, what kind of a different tactic should I use?
Just go all out the second the battle begins.
It's too late.
Did Kayden's apprentice just use super speed to fight close combat?
Did I just lose?
It's over! Jiwoo Seo wins!
Yes!
A defeated Jurian can't believe that he was unable to do anything against Jiwoo. Jiwoo shouts to Kayden that everything worked out just as he said it would. Jurian sees the two of them together, and Kayden says that for people like Jurian, all you have to do is push the right buttons and they will do the rest. Suddenly, Jurian realizes that everything went exactly as they planned. Kayden scoffs at the fact that Jurian fell right for their trap, practically dooming himself when he suggested the handicap. He shakes his head in disappointment as he tells himself that Kayden's tricks wouldn't have worked on him. Veramonte asks Kayden if, unlike him, his apprentice Jiwoo has a close combat fighting style, and Kayden says he's right. Veramonte then asks if Jiwoo's posture at the start of the battle was a bluffing gesture to mislead Jurian, and Kayden smiles, saying yes. Much to his surprise, Veramonte realizes that the two of them got them good. In addition, he adds that if Jiwoo hadn't been fast enough, their plan would have never worked. His speed was too high for Jurian to have any chance at reacting. Kayden points out to Veramonte that his own grandson got defeated by his apprentice just to annoy him. Seeing Kayden talk like that makes Jurian realize that he's disgraced the name of the great Patrick family, and anger flares up within him. Noticing this, Kayden calls out Jurian and asks him what's wrong, trying to see if he wants to say that the match was invalid and asked Jiwoo to go again. Hearing this, Jurian is shocked. He stays silent for a moment before accepting his defeat to Jiwoo. Also unsatisfied with their match, Jiwoo speaks up and says that next time, he'll be the one to challenge Jurian. He's aware that he wouldn't have had a fighting chance if this was an ordinary sparring match, and he would love to challenge Jurian again. Since he can't take on Jurian right now, he asks to be allowed to challenge Jurian once he's made himself fit to be his rival. Jurian smiles and says that he'll be looking forward to it. Jurian bows and excuses himself before walking away. Filled with determination, Jiwoo thinks that he didn't win the match, especially since he barely managed to trick Jurian into losing under the given conditions. He resolves to grow stronger so that he can face him properly without any gimmicks next time. Veramonte tells Kayden that he must be proud of his apprentice. He asks him how long he has been training Jiwoo, and Kayden answers that it hasn't even been a full year. His answer amazes Veramonte, as he wonders how Jiwoo became so strong in such a short period of time. Veramonte says he must be cut from the same cloth as Kayden, then adds that he's a little monster with a chuckle. Kayden smiles, asking Veramonte to tell Jiwoo that he has taught him well and praise him. Veramonte walks toward Jiwoo and thanks him, saying the match was a good experience for his grandson. As he turns to leave, he says that he will see them around. Kayden then tells Jiwoo to head back and to continue his daily force control training everywhere except for the arm he injured, since tricks can only save him once. Jiwoo bows and says his goodbyes. In-hyuk chimes in that running some tests in the hospital may be a good idea after the intense fight. But Jiwoo insists he'll be fine since he has Kayden to look after him. As Jiwoo walks away happily, In-hyuk comments that Jiwoo never ceases to amaze him, and that he is growing stronger by the day. Although silent, Ji-young in agreement smiles at Jiwoo's amazing growth. Back at home, Kayden heals Jiwoo's arm. Kayden comments that the impact of max speed on his body is still significant, even with Chairman Han's attack method. Jiwoo says that it is, but that it's much better than it was before. Suddenly, Kayden realizes that someone has just entered the house. A woman sits next to the cats, talking to them softly. When Jiwoo goes to look, he realizes the woman is none other than his mother. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like. Also, comment down below what webtoon or manhwa you want us to cover next. Thanks again, and stay tuned for a sneak peek of the next episode of Eleceed.
Next time on Eleceed.
It's so nice to meet you. I'm Jiwoo's mom. I had no idea you were Jiwoo Seo's mom.
My recovery's been so slow lately.
Fataray, a ranker in the world's top 50 has been confirmed to have entered our country.
I heard that Kayden was in this country. I'll give you 1 week, or else this group will vanish from the face of this earth.